All right, it says find the real zeros of the polynomial, write the in factor form. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is their p's over q's. That's the factors of this number, those are the p's. Factors of that number, which is the q's. So the factors of 6 over the factors of 1. So we get plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, plus or minus 6. And now we need to try these numbers out. So we go through, let's try 1. And we use synthetic division to go through this process. So add straight down, multiply, add straight down, multiply, add straight down, multiply. So it worked. I know it worked because my remainder is 0. So what I have now is x minus 1. That comes from that, right? Because this is my 0. My 0 is 1. So my factor is x minus my 0, which is x minus 1. And then here, if that's my remainder, I have x squared minus x minus 6. Then I can factor this further. A times c, factors that add to b. So negative 3 and 2. So there's my factored form, which means my zeros, if I set each one equal to 0, is 1, 3, and negative 2. Let's try another one. So for this one here, my p's over q's will be factors of 32. So that's 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So let's try it. Let's try positive 1. So we have 1, 2, negative 12, negative 40, negative 32. Add straight down, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply. That's not going to work. So not positive 1. Let's try negative 1. Add straight down, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply. That's also not going to work. So now we're going to try positive 2. Add straight down, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add. Well, it looks like it's also not going to work. So I'm going to get negative 48. So now we're going to try negative 2. Add straight down, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add. That worked. So that means that it's now x plus 2, right? Because this is that right there, what I just divided by. And I'm left with x cubed minus 12x minus 16. Now I can break this down further. So I'm going to try negative 2 again, because what if there's multiplicity? What if there's a factor of negative 2 in there again? I won't know, so let's write it out. Remember, there's no x squared, so 0. Add straight down, multiply, add, multiply. So that worked. So what does that mean now? So now I have this x plus 2 from the beginning. I have x plus 2 again from this one. And then I'm left with x squared minus 2x minus 8. Now that's the factored form. And now I can go through and factor that further. That's x minus 4, x plus 2. So I can simplify that into x plus 2 cubed, x minus 4. And then my zeros are going to be negative 2 and 4. Now, problems like 5 or 6, if you notice, there's no p. P is the constant. There's no constant. Well, that tells us that there's something in common I need to factor out first. So I need to factor out the x. Now, oh, this is x squared, a times c, factors that add to b. Then we can go through that process. Or you can try your p's over q's if that's something you want to do. Same thing with number 6. I have to factor out that x squared first. Then it looks like I can try and factor this. It's quadratic. A times c factors that add to b. Right? We can go through that process. For number 7 through 10, we're going to have to rewind a little bit because we learned this trick and we're just reinforcing it today. We have problems that look quadratic, but they're not. We call those quadratic type. And so the idea here is that I could, if I substitute, what if I said u equals x squared? This becomes x squared squared, so that's u squared, plus 2u minus 15. Now this I can factor. A times c, that adds to b, that's going to be plus 5, negative 3. So this becomes u plus 5, u minus 3. Now I can resubstitute everything back in because we're solving it for it, right? Now, here's the important piece, right? So factored wise, it's factored. So when it says right here, right, the factored form, that's it. But now it's asking us to still find the real zeros. So that means if I set each of these equal to 0, I'm going to get a negative 5. Well, when I square root of that, it's going to give me root 5i. I don't have to worry about that. That's not a real 0. But this one are going to be my real zeros. So that's going to be my answer. And so for these, we just have to figure out what it is that we're going to be substituting. For this one here, my u equals x cubed. So this becomes u squared minus 3u minus 10. That'll factor into u minus 5, u plus 2. Set that equal to 0. So u, I could resubstitute it back in. So this is my factored form. Right, so that's the factored form. But because it's set equal to 0, I get x cubed equals 5. Cube root both sides. Now when you odd root, there's no plus or minus. So that's just the cube root of 5. And then cube root negative 2, because I subtract 2 on both sides. Cube root both sides. And then the other thing, it's okay that you have a negative inside of a cubed root, because negative times negative times a negative would give me the negative 2, because it's an odd number of negatives. You're allowed to do that. So those would be my real zeros.